Following the ending of the American Civil War with the Confederacy's surrender at Maddox Courthouse began a period of Reconstruction. And this is the time period from 1865 to 1877 where the country tries to put itself back together and unfortunately is not going to work, causing decades and decades of conflict between the North and the South. So Abraham Lincoln was president at the time the Civil War ended, and his goal was to not completely destroy the South, but to really be more lenient with them and let them join into the Union. And his main thing was the 10% plan. And it said that 10% of the voters in a southern state agree to swear loyalty to the Union, then they can create a new state government. He also was influential in creating the Freedmen's Bureau, addressing the after effects of the African American community and finding jobs and finding homes for them following the Civil War. In reaction to his 10% plan, Congress created the Wade-Davis Bill. The Wade-Davis Bill did a couple of things. One, it required the voters, 50% of voters, to swear loyalty to the Union, and also said that states had to forgive Confederate debt and prohibit slavery. Much more retaliatory and aggressive than Lincoln's 10% plan, and Lincoln vetoed the bill in 1864. While Lincoln is still president, there are a couple of things. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued following the Battle of Antietam, freeing slaves in state of rebellion, and Lincoln really pushes for the passing of the 13th Amendment, which frees in slavery in every state in the United States. This is one of three Reconstruction bills that you'll have to remember, of 13th, 14th, and 15th. Unfortunately, Lincoln's plan is never brought to full circle because Lincoln is assassinated on April 14th, 1865. He was shot by John Wilkes Booth, who was an actor, very famous at the time in Ford's Theater. And it was really a loss of not just a president, but as somebody that could heal our nation. He was a good compromiser, he knew how to negotiate, and was just a really good politician and saw the greater good. And unfortunately, with his death, the country kind of falls and is not really able to recover in a timely manner. So following his death, Andrew Johnson takes over. He is from the South. And though he is from the South, he grew up really poor and hates rich, wealthy plantation owners. There's a lot of resentment towards that social class. He had a plan very similar to Lincoln's, but he again did not have that ability to work with people the way Lincoln did, which really is his ultimate downfall. And this begins a period of presidential reconstruction, where Andrew Johnson is really going to push forward. And after he fails at bringing the country back together, Congress will take over in a much more radical way. So Johnson's plan, he had four ideas for what he wanted to do. The first is to nullify secession, making it illegal for states to leave the Union, forgive Confederate debt, ratify the 13th Amendment, this is very important, and offer pardons to everyone. This included, Robert E. Lee, very high generals in the Confederate Army. But one thing that Johnson is remembered negatively for is that he did not care anything about African Americans. He was actually a racist and did not believe that African Americans should be afforded rights. Even though he did support the ratification of the 13th Amendment, he did nothing to give free blacks help in the voting situation or having land available to them during the Reconstruction era. So Johnson's plan in 1865, all southern states accepted Johnson's plan with the exception of Mississippi. The thing that changed, though, was that the majority of the representatives sent from each of the southern states were the same as they were before the war. So the congressmen that were present in 1840 were the same ones that were present in 1865, which was not what Johnson wanted to happen, but it was a way that the South manipulated the new Reconstruction plan. Johnson, feeling that he had done everything that he needed to do, declared Reconstruction complete. And we know just from hindsight that in 1865, the country is still in a very negative space and is not really reconstructed or put back together. One of the most notorious things to come out of Reconstruction is the way that Southern states found loopholes within the new laws. And these became known as black codes. We'll talk about them later with Jim Crow laws. But they were laws passed by states denying citizenship rights to free blacks. These are individual states that passed them, specifically in the South. It forbid blacks from traveling, marriage, having certain jobs. And again, we talked about Andrew Johnson. This just really didn't bother him because this wasn't his priority. When it really should have been, when it would have been Lincoln's priority to make sure that all citizens were given a new opportunity, whereas under Andrew Johnson, it was just white citizens. Johnson's plan, again, angered a large amount of people in Congress, specifically those that followed Lincoln, and they became known as radical Republicans. Radical means that they will do the exact opposite of what Andrew Johnson wants and try to push forward their plan for Reconstruction. Republicans had taken over Congress, refusing to seat the Southern congressmen in December of 1865. And they passed the Freedmen's Bureau Bill, which is essential, really, in providing food, lodging, clothing for former slaves following the end of the Civil War. And then Congress also passes during this time the Civil Rights Bill of 1866, which gives full citizenship rights to free blacks and outlaws black codes. If this law had been passed, a lot of the problems of Reconstruction would have ended. But Johnson, being that he's president and has the ability to do this, he vetoes both bills. And really, yes, he vetoes the bills, but he loses all support that he had in Congress and is really never able to recover from that. And his presidency will suffer for it. And he's remembered negatively for it. And that leads us to a period of congressional reconstruction. I'm going to go into that very briefly. We won't cover all of it. But congressional reconstruction is the time period where Congress really takes over and really takes a lot of power from the president. And it was kind of the first time that had happened in our history. 16 presidents or 17 presidents up to now had been the leader, and now Congress was the one making decisions. So the decision was, what type of Republican is going to control Reconstruction? You had the radical Reconstructions who wanted everything to change automatically. You had the moderate Republicans, who wanted things to change slowly but surely, and eventually they would be at the same place that the radicals were. And then you had conservatives who wanted slavery to end, but really did not want to give African Americans any kind of voting rights. And just kind of have them be citizens, but not active citizens. Those are the three levels. In 1866, the moderate and the radicals decide that the only way they're going to be able to defeat Johnson is to join together. And so they decide to join together, creating this larger political party, eliminating the middleman with their group. Together, they're able to override Johnson's veto and get the two bills that he had vetoed previously passed, specifically the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and the Freedmen's Bureau, which are very influential in this time period. And it's important to remember this is the first time Congress had ever done something that was not in the president's interest. They had never not supported something. And it really goes to show how much Johnson was hated within the legislature and how Reconstruction is going to take much longer than 2 years to fix. And we will talk about that tomorrow.